Story 1. Do not ask, "How are you?" in Lithuania and several other surrounding countries if you are not interested in finding out. This question is reserved for a close circle. Story 2. UK pub bar etiquette. To anyone walking into a busy British pub, it may look like there is no queue, a bit of a free-for-all, but everyone in the queue knows exactly who is next. When the barman asks, a little nod is given to the next in line. Story 3. You must thank the bus driver when exiting. Even though modern buses have you exit at the midpoint, you must still say thank you even if the driver cannot hear it. Story 4. In Ireland, when you find the locals buying you drinks, you need to buy them back. It is called buying your round. Story 5. When someone passes away, you take the body home and care for it overnight or for a couple of nights while all the people they know visit and share food and drink. The body is laid out in an open coffin in the main living room of the house. This can lead to memorable gatherings and even music sessions around the deceased. They then receive a proper burial while the living nurse a severe hangover. Everyone discusses how meaningful the farewell was for the deceased. Nothing brings greater honor to a family than a respectful farewell. The best farewells are remembered for years. Many visitors bring food and drink, although usually the host family provides the beverages. A bottle of whiskey is often brought if they were a close friend, as a way to send them off. Story 6. United Kingdom. If two people are walking towards each other and move out of the way, both have to say sorry. You must also say sorry if someone holds a door open for you and it takes more than half a second for you to reach the door. Story 7. In Canada, you do not call anyone buddy who is not already your friend. Calling someone you do not know buddy or bud is insulting, whether on or off the ice. Story 8. When intending to leave a social gathering and you are sitting down, you slap your thighs and exclaim, "So!" Everyone will recognize your intentions and say goodbye to you. Story 9. If you are invited to a party and told to bring a plate, do not just bring a plate. You are being invited to a potluck. Story 10. In Sierra Leone, at least in the part where I live, you do not say shoo to someone bothering you in the street. You raise your hand and say, "I will beat you." It gave my dad and me a fright the first time a friend there said it to a beggar. He did not beat the beggar, do not worry. Story 11. If someone says, "How are you? How's it going? What's the crack?" We are basically saying hello and not actually expecting you to tell us how you are. Acceptable responses are, "Grand. Sure, look. Sure, you know yourself." When in the pub, always buy your round. If you do not, you will forever be known as tight or cheap. Story 12. Cut the cheese the right way. No one will tell you how to, and you'll get death stares if you cut it wrong. Story 13. When I first moved to Singapore, I would go to the food court and just hand over my money like I did in the United States. I was polite, saying please and thank you and always trying to be a good customer. But sometimes they would just throw the money back at me with a scowl. I didn't understand until I observed that locals were handing the money over with two hands. They didn't just toss the payment at the cashier but gave it up in an almost ceremonial way. I started doing that and I didn't get the scowl anymore. Story 14. If you are in Germany and the people at the table are mostly German, expect the process of paying the bill to take longer because everyone wants to pay for themselves or for themselves and their partner. I realized this when I spent time with Greeks, Spanish people, and other nationalities. They wanted just to buy food for the table and we all ate from it. This idea made many Germans, including me, feel uneasy. Story 15. In Japan, if an elderly person gets on public transportation and there are no seats available, they tap the shoulder of the person whose seat they want to take, and the person sitting will always agree. Story 16. You never jump a queue, not even by accident. Not even if you are in the emergency room on fire do you jump ahead. If there is something you want to use, you double-check that there is not a queue. Even if there is nobody in sight, you use the queue. Even if there is no labeled queue, you use the queue. Story 17. In Minnesota, you never take the last of the food. You keep having what is there. The last piece of pie becomes a sliver. The last pork chop becomes half a pork chop. Finished the chips? No, just smashed chips are left, but someone could eat them. I once had a friend from New Jersey eat with all my Minnesota friends at a family-style restaurant. She actually finished the dishes, and people afterward were shocked and a little overwhelmed that she had the audacity to finish what was there without even asking. Story 18. There was a website on local culture, and here is one of the things it said about visiting the United States of America. Never ever use curse words when there are children around who might hear you, as children are not allowed to curse. However, if you see a group of teenagers yelling and cursing while they roam the streets, do not scold them. Just let them be. I found this hilarious as a social rule I had never really thought of, but it is spot on. Story 19. We made friends with a married couple from India. One night, sitting with them in our living room enjoying wine together, the wife pointed out that the sole of my foot was facing her. She said that in India that would be considered rude. She did not take offense. It was more of an interesting observation about how cultures differ from each other. Story 20. Do not mention a deceased indigenous person's name to an indigenous person without warning them beforehand. Australia. Story 21. In the Czech Republic, it is normal not to smile at strangers on the street. It is not rude. It is just how people are. Tourists often think people are grumpy, but it is just a normal mind-your-own-business vibe. Smiling too much at people you do not know can make them think you are weird or flirting. Story 22. In Sweden, it is quite common for people to ignore the presence of others around them, to the point that they block traffic regardless of how busy it is. It takes some time to get used to. Story 23. In Finland, if you are waiting for a bus at the bus stop, you must maintain a minimum distance of 2 to 3 meters from a person you do not know. Story 24. Spain. Do not take your shoes off in someone else's house unless you are specifically told to do so or given permission. Story 25. In Germany, especially in the south, it is expected to be silent and not behave suspiciously in public. So if you are speaking with friends or on the phone and everyone can hear your conversation, do not be upset if everyone is staring. Story 26. Not everywhere in the United States, but if you are walking past someone, you are supposed to curtly smile at them and be especially cordial and kind toward waiters, bellhops, and other service industry people. Our German coworker was flabbergasted that the grocery cashier smiled and asked him if he was having a nice day. Story 27. When you pass someone in a crowded area, such as a grocery store or mall, you say, "Sorry, I'm just going to scooch past you there." Story 28. Driving on rural roads, you raise your forefinger if it is a stranger passing. If it is someone you somewhat know, use a hand signal but keep your thumb attached to the steering wheel. If it is someone you know well but is not a close friend, remove your hand from the wheel, perhaps at a slight angle. If it is a close friend, use a full sideways hand pressed against the windshield. Story 29. When you enter a store, a bakery, or a butcher shop, you must make a mental map of the queue. Do not form a line, just remember your position in the waiting order. Story 30. Netherlands. If it is someone's birthday, congratulate that person. For example, congratulations to your aunt. Story 31. In Italy, when you are at somebody's place, you are almost expected to decline the first offer of a drink, snack, or similar out of politeness. In olden times, this was also to avoid giving the impression that your family could not feed you. "Do not stuff your face as if we were not giving you enough food at home," was a common remark by my mother when I was a child staying over at my cousins' or friends' houses. Even more comical, during family dinners, it was mandatory for women to fight over who would do the dishes, creating some involuntary Three Stooges-like skits with adult and elderly women pretending to argue about who would bear the brunt of the work. Of course, the party host would be the most feisty, as she would not want her guests to inconvenience themselves. Dishwashers have sadly deprived younger generations of this wonderful piece of live theater. Still, you are also expected to offer some kind of help when staying over. Set the table, tidy up, bring the dishes to the sink, and so forth. And, as mentioned, the host will almost physically restrain you from doing so. Story 32. In Brazil. 1. When going out, the scheduled time is just a suggestion. If the outing is scheduled to start at 7:30 p.m., most people, including the hosts, will only arrive from 8 p.m. onwards. If you meet someone you know but have not seen for some time by chance, it is polite to say, "Let's meet up sometime," and the person will respond, "Yeah, let's," even though neither of you intends to do so, and you probably will not see each other again for quite some time. Story 33. In the Midwest, when you leave a party, you tell everyone you know that you are leaving, then you have to go around again and tell everyone you are really leaving now. It has to be the most inefficient thing ever. Sometimes I will pull an Irish goodbye and sneak out, but that is much less common. Story 34. 1. Touching elders' feet. A traditional greeting or way of showing respect, still widely practiced in many homes, especially during festivals, weddings, or when meeting after a long time. Addressing people. You rarely call elders by their first name. You add an honorific, for example, auntie, uncle, bia, didi, or suffixes like ji, as in Sharmaji. 3. It is a common tradition for school children in India to bring candy, often individually wrapped toffees or chocolates, to share with their classmates and teachers on their birthday. The child usually wears birthday clothes, a special outfit instead of the regular school uniform, and goes around distributing sweets to classmates and teachers. Shoes off. You take off your shoes before entering someone's home, a temple, or some shops. Right hand rule. Always give and receive money, gifts, or food with your right hand or both hands. The left hand is considered impure. Titles matter. People often use sir or madam, even in casual office settings, as a sign of respect, not necessarily formality. Story 35. If you are passing by a group of people drinking alcohol and they offer you a drink, accept it. Declining an offer is seen as disrespectful, especially if you are just visiting the area. Never sing My Way by Frank Sinatra in karaoke. Multiple deaths have been reported linked to the singing of this song. Story 36. I do not know if it is a country thing, but I have always seen people do it here. If you are with a group of friends having a couple of beers and there is no bin, you give your cup to another friend who is still drinking, and they stack it. That being said, there are fewer disposable cups, so this is not as common as it once was. Story 37. When applying for a job, you must write your resume or curriculum vitae by hand. A typed resume is considered lazy and can prevent you from getting hired, especially if you are a new graduate. Story 38. In Belgium, you always give one kiss on the cheek at work to your colleagues. Men to women and men to men. This applies regardless of your position in the company. Story 39. If you enter a place, any place, it does not matter if it is a dentist waiting room, a workplace, or a bus, you have to announce good morning or good afternoon to whoever is there, even if you do not know them, and they will answer back. If you do not do that or you do not answer someone back, people will think you are either a tourist or a full of yourself expatriate. Story 40. I am about to mention one of your deceased ancestors. Are you okay with me continuing, or would you prefer to be outside earshot? Story 41. In my country, you place some items on the table to reserve it before ordering your food. Examples of commonly placed items include tissue paper and foldable umbrellas. Story 42. Always go 5 to 10 miles per hour above the speed limit, except when passing through a small town. You will get pulled over if you are not a local. The towns have limited funding, and you will receive a ticket. It is a sort of tourism tax. Story 43. Even if there is no queue, everyone is still waiting in line regardless of the situation. That may look like a random group of people standing around a bus stop, but everyone knows who will board before them. Story 44. When drinking with friends, we use just one glass, maybe two if we have chaser drinks for everyone, and we drink in turns. No skipping. Guards and salespeople greet customers with ma'am sir. A blend of ma'am and sir. Gender inclusive, I guess. Never curl your finger when asking someone to come to you. We often pout our lips to point at something. We are not asking for a kiss. When we have guests, we pull out all the stops to make them feel comfortable. Do not be surprised if we offer too much food. Hospitality and feeding people are valid expressions of love. Story 45. You thank the bus driver. You apologize when you bump into something. You apologize when something bumps into you. You have a standoff when getting on buses. No, you go first. Story 46. You should never let any stationary item come into contact with your feet, as it is considered disrespectful to knowledge. Story 47. Calling your friend a fool in the United Kingdom. Yes, my American relatives thought it was crude. We thought it was hilarious. Story 48. I immigrated to Europe a few years ago and found it strange how many people take off their shoes when entering a home. In South Africa, this is not customary, especially if you are not family or very close friends. You wipe your shoes on the mat at the front door and keep them on. I suppose it is because in South Africa it gets very hot, and people do not want someone's sweaty, smelly feet on their floors and carpets. Story 49. In Singapore, at our famous hawker centers, which are similar to food courts, if you see empty tables with only a packet of tissue paper or napkins, do not sit at the table. This item indicates the table has been reserved. The tissue paper is not for you to take. You might also see other items used to reserve tables, such as water bottles, lanyards, or umbrellas. Story 50. A double knee slap and a well, I suppose mean this conversation is over, and we are beginning the long process of saying goodbye to the Midwest. Story 51. Not that extraordinary, but in Hong Kong and the rest of China, except Taiwan, you have to wash your cutlery and dishes in traditional restaurants. Story 52. When you see a packet of tissue paper on an empty table at a crowded lunch spot, that table is taken. Story 53. If you are getting on a mountain, you need to greet everybody you see. However, once you are in the valley, you do not greet anyone. Story 54. I am from Singapore. We chop, meaning reserve, tables in food courts by leaving personal items on the tables while we go order our food. Personal items range from packets of tissues to umbrellas, cell phones, laptops, purses, and work identification cards. Anything you have on your person can be left behind, but comfort levels vary on what people choose to deposit. The social convention is to recognize that the table is reserved, so do not take it, and that the items do not belong to you, so do not steal them. It is a very trusting society. Recently, a woman posted on social media that she forgot her entire backpack, containing valuable electronics, after breakfast. She returned 3 hours later, expecting the worst, but it was untouched, right where she left it. Story 55. I've lived in Sweden for 20 years, and this is what I've learned. You never take the last snack from a bowl or a plate. Always leave one piece of something. Maybe someone wants the last piece. I don't want to come off as too gluttonous. You stand on the right side of the escalator so people who are in a hurry can get past on your left. When getting on a bus or train, you stand to the side and wait so people can get off first. Then you are free to get on. If the bus or train is empty or half empty, you always sit where it's empty. Never sit close beside someone unless you have no other choice of seating. And the biggest one, you absolutely, under any circumstances, no matter what, tell no one about your chanterelle spot in the woods. You take that secret to the grave. Story 56. In Australia, the greater the understatement, the more negative or serious the sentence. Example, a bloody bastard. A good person, we love them. A bit of a bastard. Absolute trash. Avoid. Yeah, nah is also a stronger negative than absolutely not. Story 57. If someone says, well, I will not keep you, it means move along or this conversation is over. Thank them for their time, wish them a blessed day, and politely end the interaction. Story 58. India. You do not touch a book with your foot. And if you do, you have to pick it up and apologize to the book and the goddess of learning. Story 59. In Iran, there is a rule called tear-off. Let's say you are in an elevator with a stranger, and you both are going to the same floor. When the elevator arrives at that floor, you start saying "Barmaid," which means something like, please, you go first. You do this at least 3 times. Then one of you says sorry and gets off before the other. This happens in many situations, such as leaving a place or getting on an elevator. Story 60. In Japan, you always take your shoes off before entering the home. You leave the germs and shoes outside where they belong. Story 61. Understanding what a round is in a pub in Ireland. I had to explain it to a group of Americans, and they were amazed. Story 62. Germany. It is offensive to congratulate someone on their birthday before their actual birthday. My United States boss did that, and I was confused and irritated, but it seems normal in other countries. Story 63. In England, when someone says "all right" to you, they are not asking how you are. A typical interaction will be, all right, all right. Story 64. In Ireland, it is perfectly acceptable to leave without saying goodbye on a heavy night out drinking. Story 65. If a Japanese person tells you yes, it does not mean they understood you or agree with you. It means they were listening to you. Story 66. I used to live in the United Kingdom and now live in Canada. I was home alone with a plumber and had to genuinely message my roommate to ask if it was rude not to offer the plumber a cup of tea. In the United Kingdom, you are absolutely supposed to offer tea to tradespeople when they are working in your house. Story 67. In the United States, there are two different unspoken greeting nods. A quick nod upward is a silent greeting among peers. A nod downward is a respectful nonverbal acknowledgement of strangers or people to whom you need to show respect. Story 68. Never, and I mean never, ask a Czech person, "How are you?" during greetings unless you want to hear their entire life story. Story 69. Do not call an ambulance or the police without the person's consent. Only call emergency services if the person is genuinely unable to respond. Otherwise, try to assist them yourself. Story 70. You also congratulate other people, such as family and close friends, on the birthday boy's or girl's birthday. Netherlands. Story 71. In Brazil, expressions like, "let's schedule to go out," or "let's mark a date to meet again," are basically informal ways of saying goodbye. No one actually expects others to choose a date for a future gathering or anything of the sort. It is a way of saying, "Today was nice. Let's meet again sometime before either of us is gone." Story 72. In Spain, it is common for people, when entering a restaurant, to greet other customers who are already eating with "Buen provecho." Story 73. I've heard that when you are at dinner with an Italian family and they ask if you want a coffee, it is time to go home. Disclaimer. This is secondhand information, not from Italy. Story 74. The only time it is socially acceptable to greet random strangers is when hiking or under very specific circumstances when out drinking. Story 75. In the upper Midwest, we wave and smile and sometimes even have a short chat with almost everyone. Biking, wave and smile. Driving, wave. Walking past someone, smile. Walking into a coffee shop past outside tables, chat and smile. Yes, even with strangers. Friend, stop in the middle of the road to chat, even if cars are going in opposite directions or one person is driving and the other is walking. As you can tell, I love it here. Story 76. In the United States, the second question you are asked when meeting a stranger is almost always, "What do you do?" Meaning, what do you do for work? I think it is to establish a socioeconomic pecking order or maybe a conversation starter. One time, my friend did this to an Italian, and he said, "I like wine and dancing with my wife," and she was confused. Then she said, "What do you do for work?" and he was confused. This was a funny interaction to watch. Story 77. In France, being on time at someone's party is rude. Being more than 1 hour late is also rude, but not as much. You are supposed to arrive a bit late to make sure the host has enough time to prepare everything. The rule is called the quarter of courtesy, meaning the expected time is roughly 15 minutes late. But this is a general idea, not a precise indicator. In general, for any social event, the announced time is the minimum time we expect to be ready by if everything goes smoothly, but delays are always expected. If being on time is necessary, the organizer will insist on it many times. Story 78. You have to be good with banter. 95% of all Scottish banter consists of insults, but contrary to the belief of many, those insults mean they like you. If everybody walks on eggshells around you or refuses to banter with you, they do not like you. I have heard many stories of American visitors getting legitimately angry and aggressive over the most casual Scottish conversation. Know what culture you are going to encounter before you visit. Story 79. In my country, you do not beg for forgiveness if you make a natural body sound. If I were to sneeze, I would only say excuse me if I sprayed somebody with saliva, not otherwise. The same goes for burps, hiccups, and coughing. It is natural, so do not apologize. Story 80. Do not talk about money in France, or rather, do not talk about the amount of money. Saying how much you earn is considered bad form. You are seen as both shallow-minded and boastful. Just be vague. This is something my American friends find confusing. They tell me without hesitation exactly how much they make, and they are always surprised when I tell them I find it rude to disclose my income. Story 81. It was pointed out in another forum, and I never thought about it before, but it is 100% true. When you meet someone and you are 5 minutes late, apologize beforehand. Even if it seems ridiculous for a foreigner, it is only 5 minutes, you still have to apologize. Of course, the other person will say, "Oh, no problem," but only because you apologized. Otherwise, they will get mad. This is especially true if you are 10 to 15 minutes late. Then you definitely have to give them a good excuse and say sorry. Story 82. When I eat out with a friend, we usually order 2 dishes and share them using small plates. South Korea. Story 83. If you are invited to someone's home for a meal, always bring more wine or beer than you and your partner are going to drink. If it is a group of 4 and you have not seen them for a while, flowers or a box of chocolates are also recommended. Britain. Story 84. If you are making yourself a hot drink, you have to offer anyone currently in your home a hot drink as well. It is a rule so common, at least in my house, that I know exactly how my whole family drinks their tea. Story 85. A friend from Texas told me that people in the southwestern United States will seethe if you walk on their grass. I am from the southeast, and it is not like that here. However, if you talk to somebody's grandmother here and do not say, "Ma'am," you had better be quick with an apology, preferably followed by a banana pudding. Story 86. If you arrive at a public house in Ireland and 5 or 6 friends are there before you, it is not unusual to buy all of them a drink. Story 87. I have a friend from Afghanistan who told me it is normal for grown men, such as family members like 2 brothers, to hold hands in public. This warms my heart. What a great way to feel safe with the ones you love. Story 88. In Brazil, if someone says, "Show up at my house sometime," the person is not inviting you to go. It is just a way to say goodbye. Story 89. In Brunei, when we eat together and share food family style, it is common to leave the last piece or portion of each dish. It is a way to show you are thinking of others and not being greedy. If you want to take the last bit, it is polite to ask everyone first before finishing it. Story 90. Just don't look a person with mental illness who is homeless in the eyes, and you should be fine. It's unfortunate that this happens in the United States, but it's good that they leave you alone. Story 91. In South Korea, it is normal to wear a mask if you are sick and considered rude not to, even before the pandemic. I can only imagine how much that would upset the average American, given how things went with coronavirus disease 2019. Story 92. Take your shoes and leave them on the doormat before you drag outside dirt, germs, and parasites into my living space. Thank you very much. Do not randomly smile at strangers in public transit. You will freak them out. Mind your own business and do not engage anyone unless you need some sort of help. Most people will go out of their way to help or advise you. You should not refuse when a host offers you food or beverage. You may delay with excuses for a short while, but ultimately you have to give in and at least have a taste, meaning eat at least half or more of the offered portion. It is good to ask for seconds, and you always have to compliment the dish, even if it tastes unpleasant or is outside your preferences. Tips are reserved for only extraordinary service. We have livable minimum wages, and our service industry does not need to rely on the generosity of strangers. You tip when your server provides extra service or has to deal with extra issues. Until recently, tips in most professions were seen as a form of charity and a mild insult. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.